Welcome to another episode of Make America Healthy, where our goal is to empower you, educate you, and inspire you with practical tools to use to take better care of your physical and mental health. And today we're going to talk about pet health, everything you need to know to take better care of your pets. So we are joined by two veterinarians today, and we've got a great show for you. First, we'd like to thank our sponsors. We'd like to thank Life Boost Coffee, the cleanest, most organic, mold-free coffee that you can find. With over 25 different flavors, all shade grown, they pay their farmers an equitable wage, and the coffee is really delicious and very healthy. You can check out Life Boost Coffee at lifeboostcoffee.com. And you can also save at checkout by using the code YogaFit. And we'd also like to thank our sponsor, Erchonia Lasers. So if you're looking for an amazing laser for you to take care of yourself or your pets, we've got Erchonia's low-level lasers. They're FDA cleared, designed for precision. It's a way to have a healthier you and a healthier pet. I'm a huge believer in red light therapy, everything from curing chronic infections to pain and inflammation to scar tissue. I'm using this laser on my dog, and I can tell you it really works. So we'd like to, again, thank our sponsor, YogaFit Training Systems Worldwide, the leader in yoga, mind, body, fitness education, offering corporate wellness, trainings, conferences, special events, retreats, and so much more. You can check out YogaFit at yogafit.com. If you're suffering with any back issues, need to strengthen your core, improve your posture, check out YogaFit. So today's topic is pet health, and this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I have a pet who is more than a pet. He's a family member. I've had him for over 11 years, and he is pretty much my soulmate, my constant companion, and the love of my life. And he's also suffering from some health issues. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome Dr. Dave Huff, who graduated from the North Carolina State CVM. And he has practiced all over the country. He now has a practice in North Carolina, and he's affiliated with all sorts of different organizations, including NAVC, WWVC. He is the proud owner of Plantation Animal Hospital in Clayton, North Carolina, and he specializes in superior small animal care. He also works with Erchonia Lasers, and he is their medical advisor. We'd also like to welcome Dr. Terry Sizemore. She's a DVM RN educator and an award-winning author. She's been a veterinarian for over 37 years, a registered nurse for 43 years, and she's a teacher. She's published over 160 books, all on pets and veterinary care. So we would like to welcome both of our guests. And Dr. Sizemore, ladies first, I'm going to start with you. What are you seeing out there in terms of pet health? I know in terms of human health, we're seeing a lot of rise in cancer in humans, a lot of health issues. Obviously, we've got a huge obesity rate in the United States. What's going on with our four-legged friends?
The majority of what I see is overweight pets. Sometimes what's funny is geographical, or it's based on different clinics that I go to. Some clinics, everyone seems fit and trim, and everybody seems to be getting out and getting their pets the exercise they need. And other ones are a little more couch potato-y. They spend a little more time sedentary, like the people that are a little overweight as well. And then the dental care, I think, is the other issue that I find the most difficult to convince owners. And it's because of the cost, I think, when they're presented with the cost of the care to clean or extract teeth, then that kind of becomes something very difficult for a lot of owners. However, the two major things I see in my daily practices around town.
I know we've got a huge obesity crisis with humans, and I do see a lot of overweight dogs. I know even for myself, it's so hard to keep the weight off my dog. He loves to eat, he loves treats. And so I make a point to take him to the park every single day for a cardio session. I let him run off leash and we walk a lot, but it's still a challenge.
Sure is. There are a lot of pet foods that are helpful in that situation. I like to eat too. So I have decided I like being thin and healthy better than I like eating, but it's something that our culture kind of promotes. And so what I tell people is that there are some lighter, healthy weight formula foods, and then the science diets, the prescription diets can be helpful. They're very expensive, but they do help. Overweight management, diabetes management, those are the healthiest diets that we can feed the pets that are a little restricted in calories, but they get to feel full. And then the healthy snacks that they can have as many green beans or carrots as they want to, so that they feel full and satisfied and they're not begging or looking like they're searching the house for something else to dive into.
I actually cook for my dog and I feed him Farmer's Dog and Nom, but I mix in now, especially since he's got a recurrence of cancer, I mix in broccoli, sweet potatoes, parsley. He eats cucumbers. So it's super important for me to feed my dog the cleanest possible diet. Dr. Huff, what are you seeing out there in terms of pet health?
Oh, certainly obesity is a big player. There's no doubt about that. Actually, Purina did a very interesting 12-year study. They committed and fed dogs to 25% overweight, and it reduced their life expectancy by almost 18 months. And most of that would be attributed to arthritis, certainly some diabetes. But that's the only real controlled study I've seen that intense. 12 years they committed to try to identify what's going on with just obesity. It doesn't talk about the other stuff. So it is very important to keep your dog trim. It can literally mean a year and a half of that companionship extended to their life. So that's really good. I would echo what Dr. Sizemore said about carrots. I love baby carrots, the little hard ones. I think dogs love that. You can keep them in the fridge. They come out of a crinkly bag, so the dog thinks this has got to be good. And it's a great snack. I hesitate people to experiment too much because there are some toxicities that are just unique to dogs. Grapes are the most classic. We would think, oh, grapes are safe, but they're very toxic to dogs. And sometimes those toxicities aren't even well known. So it's important to consult with your veterinarian and just make sure. I love to feed these alternative snacks, and that's great. And I certainly didn't have any flags on the ones that you mentioned, but it's amazing though, you can have some pretty, what you would expect to be safe foods that aren't necessarily safe in your pet. So it's important to combine that.
Thank you. So, for our listeners, if you're going to give your dog healthy snacks, do your research first. So, what else are we seeing with animals these days? Any trends we need to be aware of?
For me, I certainly see a lot of arthritis and I see a lot of degenerative diseases in that vein, especially because I use the laser therapy so much for those conditions and some of those that we just have no other alternatives. Laryngeal paralysis is a good one that, for example, there's just not a lot of good options out there, but I've had very good success using the laser to try to slow that process for dogs. And the key to it is one thing I'll mention quickly, just laser doesn't mean laser. And the Zirconia is a class 2 laser. And it is very unique in how it works. It works at a photo nature, which means it's more of a systemic effect affecting the mitochondria and ATP production. And that's very important. All other laser therapies that are out there are going to be class 4 lasers. And that's going to be a photothermal laser. And that uses heat to do its work. There's lots of contraindications. You talk about doing your research. You'll see lots of contraindications for laser, but all of those are related to a class 4 laser and the thermal effects. The Zirconia laser has literally no known contraindications and can be used safely in any situation. So that's important. That's critical.
Yeah, I've been using red light therapy for years. I do a headstand upside down and put my red light in my face to stimulate mitochondria production and build collagen and all of that. I'm a huge fan of all of those lights. And again, I've been using them for almost 10 years now. So let's talk about pets and people, challenges with dogs who have been overbred, health conditions that occur with so-called pedigree dogs. My dog is a Labradoodle Rescue. I got him from Labradoodle Rescue. They're on Facebook, iDog Rescue. I have always been a fan of rescuing dogs. I guess he must have been a purebred. Someone paid a lot of money for him in a pet store, and then they wanted to euthanize him because they never had a dog before. And he's got a couple of behavioral issues, but by and large, he's an amazing dog. Do you see more issues when people buy these pedigree overbred dogs? And you can both answer this question.
I can go first. I would hesitate to say any Labradoodle's pedigree because there is no registration for a Labradoodle.
Right.
They've come out, and I've bred a lot of them over the years. I do a lot of reproduction work. So I definitely am on the side of pedigree from a certain degree. Every animal has its issue. And there is a certain sense of hybrid vigor when you have dogs that are mutts, if you will. But I can't honestly say I see a dramatic difference between purebreds and mutts. The number one killer of old dogs is cancer, and it's cancer whether it's a purebred or whether it's a mutt. There are certainly certain diseases that have a genetic component. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And you will see certain breeds with certain conditions. When you get into the very small genetic pool dogs, that's where you see your biggest problem, right? When you have breeds such as Cavalier King Charles, just as an example. Love the breed, great dog, but they're very small genetic pool so that they will promote genetic issue from that standpoint. So it's not necessarily a matter of, if you will, overbred as much as it is the genetic pool that's out there. Because when you have that small genetic pool, it definitely influences things negatively. And that's where a mutt, if you will, helps.
Dr. Sizemore, what do you think?
I agree with some, and then I have some other experience with others. I used to think that the designer dog was, what are they doing? They're charging a lot of money for a dog that's not purebred. But to be honest with you, I have seen a decline in some of the genetic things that happen in purebred dogs. And the Cavalier King Charles is a great example. I do love that breed. And almost 90% plus, it seems like, of the purebreds have a heart issue. But when we have them bred with something else, I see less of the heart issues coming up. So I'm not sure exactly how to respond. I'm all for pedigree breeding. I've done it myself. I think that...
I just want to stop. I have a question for you both. You're both veterinarians, right?
Sure.
But am I hearing correctly that you have both bred dogs?
Yes, I love golden retrievers, and I have bred very quality golden retrievers for show and home use. And I have also rescued many dogs from at different times in my life. So I don't at the moment, but yes, I have done that during my career. And during our careers, we have clients who are breeding different breeds of dogs, whether it's Dalmatians or poodles. And then the designer breed, the Labradoodle, is a great combination of two great dogs. And I don't see the subaortic stenosis in golden doodles that I may have seen in some of the purebred golden retrievers.
I will just share with you both. I have had a number of years in animal advocacy work. I was on the HSUS National Council for a number of years, worked extensively in Los Angeles on spay and neuter laws, mandatory spay and neuter, and also putting puppy mills out of business. So I really do have an ethical problem with people who breed dogs, because I know the statistics all too well, and that is that we're euthanizing over 10 million companion animals every year in the United States. But we can all agree to disagree. I wasn't aware that veterinarians participated in dog breeding.
We don't participate in puppy mills, none of us, but there are some veterinarians who have wonderful lines of hunting dogs. The German Shorthair Pointers are wonderful dogs, and I know other breeders who have done Irish Wolfhounds or veterinarians. They have the key breeds that they really love, and then they're in clubs with other owners and show people and things like that. So veterinarians have a wide range of experience. They're not only pigeonholed in one little area, but I agree with every avenue. I have clients that believe in all sorts of different things. Everyone believes you should rescue a pet, and I think that they should rescue a pet. And I think that's great. I worked in 2 shelters. I managed 2 shelters where one was a no-kill shelter, and I did all the spay and neuter in that shelter and promoted that for the clients that wanted a pet like that. And they're there, and they're wonderful pets. They make wonderful pets. And then I have had people who have a preference for a show dog or a different type of dog.
Yeah, personally, I do a lot of canine reproduction. So I do a lot of purebred breeding. It's not my own personal dogs, right? It's for clients. I agree to disagree, however you want to put it. But what I see in the dogs that I deal with, these dogs are not ending up in shelters. The dogs that end up in shelters are coming from puppy mills. They're coming from just backyard breeders. Most of the breeders that I work with, not all by any stretch, but the vast majority, they're screening the people that they want to purchase the dog from,
Sure.
right? If they're investing in a breeding animal, like for example, a field trial lab, I do a lot of work with field trial labs, and those dogs are so well treated, and they're not going to ever end up in a shelter because they're going to screen their owners, and the owners that they sell the dog to wants the dog for a very specific purpose. They want it for a hunting dog. They want it for field trials. I work some with Nova Scotia duck-tolling retrievers. It is a relatively small breed, but they do tremendous amount of genetic testing and screening and health testing before they even agree to breed a dog. So it's really hard to just say, well, breeders are bad. Puppy mills, absolutely. I dealt with a lot. I hate to throw them under the bus, but there's a lot of Amish puppy mill, and they just breed dogs and sell them.
Well, you know what? I think it's
That's-
very sad when anyone makes money off of a dog's uterus, especially when I have spent far too much time in shelters and animal rescues and seen atrocities. But anyway, we're going to move on from this topic because it's one that I'm very passionate about. And usually, if I hear someone bought their dog, I turn around and I walk the other way. But everybody's got their hot points, and this happens to be one of mine. Let's get back to how to best care for your animal, your dog or your cat, from the day that you get it. What should some best practices be in terms of food? I know I've spoken with lots of holistic vets that say that feeding like commercial dog food is one of the major contributors to canine cancer and other maladies and feline urinary issues. So, what are best practices from the day that animal comes into your house to ensure a long, healthy, and disease-free life?
I feel that there are several things. Number one, spaying and neutering. We're very big advocates of it, and we recommend that for every pet, every time. And vaccination, not over vaccination, but vaccines for the major preventable diseases of the pets. I have personally had pets get distemper, and one of my pets actually had parvo for 9 days. It was the most grueling 9 days of my life with IV therapy and a dog sitting on the edge of my bed, sick over the side of the bed for 9 days until we finally pulled out of that. Vaccination has come along to prevent the seriousness and the loss of pets. Dental care, exercise, feeding. I happen to think that human food causes cancer.
Really, I guess processed food causes us all cancer. And we
Processed-
did a show on healthy kids, and the gentleman who was on from this foundation shared with us like all the chemicals that are in so many packaged processed human foods. There's arsenic in rice. There's mercury in protein powder. There's fluoride in everything. So it seems like we can't turn around without a carcinogenic chemical coming our way. I gave my dog half my lunch, which happened to be chicken breast. What should we not be feeding our pets in terms of human food?
Most veterinarians don't recommend human food at all. However, I eat organic as much as I can because you're right, there's even lead out there. I'm so amazed. That is a big problem for us. And the pesticides that are used in farming, they're there. And we're using pesticides in Florida for the bugs around us, for fleas, for ticks. They're chemicals, and they're going to be in the environment, and they're getting in the food chain, and they're affecting our bee supply. So I'm all for organic, and I know that there are organic options for the pets as well. And then there are certain folks that just don't have the budget for it, and I do understand that. And so that's why they tend to go to some of the commercial foods that aren't quite as expensive as some of the other options that are out there that are nicer options, like the farmer's dog or some organic companies and things like that, feeding the pets.
There was also some dry mix I used to feed my prior dogs that you just mix in like turkey meat or fish. It was like a freeze-dried blend of carrots and some other things that came in bulk. Would you recommend something like that?
Sure, as long as it's not processed to the point where they're adding all sorts of chemicals and additives and things like that. Sure. I think that's always a healthy option, the balancing of it. I usually try to steer right into the 18 to 20% protein area. I know that there are folks that feel that the animals were made to eat protein, so they go 50 to even 80% protein.
And there are a lot of people who are feeding their dogs like raw organ meat. I haven't done that because I don't even know where to get. But what are your thoughts about that? Both of you, I'd like to hear.
I'll step in on the raw side. I think the raw is an absolute disaster waiting to happen for
Okay.
people in the US. And the reason is the source, like it was developed by a guy in New Zealand, if you look back and go far enough back to where it was. And the food sources in New Zealand are just completely different than the food sources in the US. And I do have a unique background on this because my dad was in the meat industry 50 years ago.
Do you
And
eat meat?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I grew up in the meat industry, so I get it. I've worked on the poultry improvement program on the veterinary side. And believe me, they would love to get rid of salmonella in the US. They would love to get rid of Campylobacter in the US. It costs the companies millions of dollars. It's just impossible with the way that we produce food in this country. The FDA actually did a study on raw diets, and over 90% of them had a pathogenic bacteria in them. I'm going to be the first to admit that dogs tolerate those pathogenic bacteria better than we do. But why would we want to put a pathogenic bacteria into our dog system? To me, that's just crazy. I have seen several litters of puppies completely wiped out by pathogenic bacteria in raw diets. So you got your soapbox, I got my soapbox, and that's the raw diet. Because I think there's alternatives out there that don't need the raw, right? There's plenty of alternatives out there. In a general sense, dog nutrition is more researched. We know more how to feed a dog than we know how to feed a person. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
And a lot of these fresh pack companies like Farmer's Dog and Nom are coming up and seem to be very popular. So do you think overall people are feeding their animals healthier food?
I think they want to. I think that every pet owner wants to do the very best that they can for their pet. And I'm sure it's very difficult for them because they get so many different ideas coming at them from so many different angles. And then they're afraid. Dry food causes cancer. Then they're scared to death to feed dry food.
If I could do it all over again, and I know that neither one of you are going to agree with this, but this is just my own belief system, I would not give my dog one single vaccine. And I also would have never fed him a dry food for the 6 years that I did before he developed his first mast cell tumor on his neck. And since then, he's never gotten a vaccine. But again, there are many holistic vets that believe that over-vaccination and processed pet foods are major contributors to pet cancer.
I'm not going to disagree with you. And I think the word there is over-vaccination. And even though I understand if you had a negative experience with a vaccine, you do not want to see distemper travel to the brain and cause seizures where you cannot save that dog. And no one wants tetanus or polio. And I have seen tetanus and polio in human beings as well because of my nursing and personal background in medicine. But I think that I have been vaccinating pets for 40 years and I have only seen 2.
I'm curious as to, because they're always like, if you take your pet to a boarding place, they're always demanding rabies vaccines. How prevalent is rabies? And do they even need to be vaccinating for that anymore?
I'll step up on this one if you don't, for a couple of reasons. The thing about rabies is it's zoonotic. So you can die from it. And the veterinarians can die from it. And it's a zoonotic disease. I went to the Ukraine, former Russia, and I went from Budapest. And if you look at the World Health Organization, you can see Budapest, which would be considered the Western parts. There's almost no rabies. You literally cross the border into the Ukraine, and there's hundreds of cases of human rabies and thousands of dog rabies. And it's because they don't vaccinate and they get no access to the vaccine. Here in the US, we have the luxury of very little active rabies. It varies from state to state. North Carolina has some rabies that we still see. We will see it almost exclusively in the wild animal population, but we will get 1 or 2, maybe 3 animal cases per year. But the reason we have that dramatic reduction is because of the vaccine. If you look at any place in the world where there are not rabies vaccines, rabies is rampant and it is a killer for both people and pets. Mm-hmm. And I will step up too with parvovirus. I'm old enough, I've been practicing long enough. I saw parvo when we didn't know what it was and we had no vaccine. And we would literally see puppies dying. I would have puppies dying in the clinic every single day. And there was nothing we could do to stop it. And then the vaccine came along and now I don't see parvo all that much. We still see it because the virus survives in the ground for years. So it's not one that requires dog-to-dog transmission. It's like distemper requires dog-to-dog transmission. So it's a little easier to control. Still, as we back off vaccines, we're seeing outbreaks of distemper. We're seeing outbreaks of parvo. And yes, individual people have the luxury of not vaccinating their pet because so much of the population does vaccinate it. But if we drop off of vaccines, and again, there's a pendulum. We over-vaccinate because we got to do for everything. I get that. And then we get a pendulum where we're not vaccinating, and that's wrong. It's always moderation. If you look at anything in life,
That's
for
what my
me-
grandmother said, and she lived
Yeah.
old, so
Yeah, exactly. But rabies is critical.
Okay.
I've seen it in other countries, and it's devastating. You look at Africa, there's a program right now, one of the vaccines that's sending a special vaccine that doesn't require refrigeration over to Africa because it's rampant there, and people and animals are dying all the time. I get it, and I'll be the first to admit, boarding kennels sometimes require way too many vaccines, but rabies is one that is definitely out there that you need.
okay.
And it's required by law.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's switch to your pet's exercise program. As I mentioned, I walk my dog for probably 20 to 30 minutes every morning. I try to get him to move around as much as possible. I take him to the park so he can run around every day. I call it his cardio session. How much should we be exercising our dogs?
That's dependent on the pet. It depends on the size and the age of the pet and the general overall health of the pet. I have seen people, they take a puppy, somebody took this beagle puppy and they used to have it run along with their bicycle for like 8 miles a day.
Wow.
And then by the time it was 3 years old, it was crippled with arthritis. And I
Ugh.
felt so sorry for that dog. And so I think when they're babies and they're growing up, sometimes they can moderate their own activity, but sometimes I think it takes us doing that as well. Little bits of activity, then we rest. Little bits of activity, then we rest, and we build them up. And then when they get older, yeah, there are some dogs, like Dr. Huff said, do field trials, and they're out for hours. They're jumping things, they're running through the woods, they're great at obstacle courses, but they've been built up to that. And so if your dog's a couch potato, they can't go out and do a field trial tomorrow. And then some of the owners have a little bit of trouble too with mobility. So it depends on what they're able to do. I think a walk every day for every pet is wonderful. How far you do that, around the couple blocks. And it depends on the pet's ability and the pet's overall health.
And also, I think being in tune enough with your animal to see, like last night, I took my dog out for a walk, and I live in South Florida and it's cooled off here. And he just wanted to keep walking. So we kept walking. Sometimes he will halt and turn around.
Yeah.
So I listen to him a fair amount as well. I think it's really important that we give our pets a certain amount of free will because, after all, they are dogs and they need to be true to their nature.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add a couple things. I've worked with a lot of animals, and not just purebreds, but just animals that do agility. You can do that. And there's some other really cool activities. One of them that I really love is called scent work or barn hunt. And the animal is taken out and searches for a scent. And it's amazing when you work the mind of a dog, how much more exhausting it is. I see these dogs that run agility. They'll run 4, 5, 6 agility runs in a day, and they're ready to rock. You do 2 or 3 scent events, and those dogs sleep all night. And so when you have events that combine exercise with mental activity, it's just so good at animals that require that. And it is important to understand which dog you have. There's so many dogs, and they don't have to be purebred. They're going to have a history, right? If it's a mutt, what is it? Is it got German Shepherd in it? Has it got field
So
dog?
would you recommend that people, if they have the capacity to do this, to do DNA tests on their dog, especially if they rescued one?
The DNA test is helpful. I wouldn't bet the farm on it.
I was going to ask you, I had a pit bull once and I had it tested and it came up French Bulldog and Great Pyrenees. So yeah. I'm wondering how accurate those DNA tests are for dogs.
I think they've gotten better, but I wouldn't bet the farm on anything that goes. But it does maybe give you a clue. But you could even get an idea from the dog. If you've got a dog with some anxiety issues, there's a good chance that dog is a working dog. And if you don't give it a job, it will find a job.
I've been wanting to give my dog a job for years.
Yeah.
How do we give our dogs jobs?
Okay. And that's a perfect example. It can be simply playing chase or ball, something activity that they like, and involving them in it for 20, 30 minutes a day, a couple times a day. The scent work, if you get involved with the agility group that does scent work, that's a great one. You don't have to compete with agility. But if you can just put a couple of jumps in your backyard, like 6, 8 inches, they don't have to be much, and maybe a weave pole and a tunnel, and you work with the dog, I would encourage you to do some agility classes so you can learn it, but you don't have to go on and have a trial dog that does thousands of agility hours, but you can still work it. You can work its mind. You can work with it. Find the things that it likes to do, and then explore those and give that dog a job that way.
I take my dog when I go to play tennis, and he goes crazy. He runs around the court. He steals all the balls. It's like his favorite activity. So yeah, there are definitely ways to include your dog in your daily activities. I also take my dog pretty much everywhere I go because I think that dogs have a pretty boring life, and he is my companion. So of course I'm going to bring him to the dentist, to a hair appointment, pretty much everywhere. And so when he passes, I will rest assured that I gave him the greatest quality life that I could and spent the most amount of time with him, because dogs' lives are also very short in comparison to humans. So I think that, like any good relationship, you don't want a day to go by where you're not showing your love and your appreciation and your gratitude for your pet. We've got about 2 minutes to the close of the show. Any more advice for physical, emotional, or mental support of your companion animal?
I know that I've seen that human animal bond, and it's like I can tell that you have one with your pet, and the pets are also bonded to their people. And it's a very special bond and a very sweet bond that I've seen throughout the years, how much the animals love their owners and want to be with them. And you are their whole life, as well as some pets the owner's whole life.
Yeah.
I had a great, I took it from a comedian of all places, but he talked about dogs and how they think everything is forever. And so when you start to pet them, they think this should go on forever. And they look at you when you stop, like, what's up with that? And when you leave, they thought, oh my gosh, they're gone forever. And so when you come home, they're like, wow, I'm so excited you came back. I didn't expect you to ever come back. So they have that kind of forever thought process in a lot of what they do. So the more you can entertain them, the more you can include them in your life. Like you, feel very strongly that's a great bond for us, but it is great for the animal. And just, I love that thought process that for dogs, everything's forever. So keeping in mind in it, if you're giving them pleasure, they expect it to go forever. And that's awesome. I hate to touch this base, but I have taken solace in that when we do have to get to the end, because if a dog is suffering and you know that there's no solution long term, they think it goes on forever, and they don't fear the end. They don't understand the end. So humane euthanasia is a way to end that endless pain that they see. And it's not perfect, but it gives me solace to know that I'm ending that thought process for them.
That's beautiful. I'd like to thank you both so much for being on the show. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I've had several dogs in my life. You get a special one. This dog, Bentley, he's got his own Instagram, Bentley77 _ for any of you listeners who want to follow Bentley Shaw. He has been one of the greatest sources of joy for me, and love, and the relationship that we have developed over 11 and a half years has been really what one would hope any relationship is like. And that is, again, daily appreciation, daily gratitude, daily practice, proper food, exercise. I give him filtered water, and I often put his needs before mine. And for those of you pet owners, we can always step it up to the next level, whether it means cooking for your dog or taking your dog more places, finding things your dog loves and enjoys that are not just food-based, because we all know dogs love food. And keep your pets healthy, make sure they get regular checkups, do your research. Share this show if you enjoyed it. Dr. David Huff, thank you. Dr. Sizemore, thank you so much. Please tell us, all of our listeners, where we can find you.
I can be found at Best Little Online Bookstore. And you mentioned about the publications. And I did create a book called D is for Dog. And it's just basic information. There's no treatment, there's no controversial information in there. It just covers the vaccines, testing recommended, spaying and neutering, lost pets, senior pets, just things like that. And it's D is for Dog can be found on Amazon or at my little bookstore. And I'd be happy to chat with anybody who wants to chat.
And you're based in Orlando, is that correct?
No, I'm closer to Daytona. I'm in
Okay.
Central, but I'm in the central area in a little town called DeLand, Florida.
And do you still have a practice there?
Yes, I just opened a home call practice of my own, and I still do relief veterinary work at different clinics in the area.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Sizemore. Dr. Huff, where can we find you?
Unfortunately, I'm old school. I have zero social media presence. I have never had a social media presence, and I probably won't. But I can be found Plantation Animal Hospital in North Carolina. That's easy enough to Google. There's websites and there's stuff for that. And then Erconia.com. I'm on their website as well. If you have specific questions about the laser, they can get in touch with me. I'm not afraid to talk to people, but I've just never had social media, and so I can't help us there.
You're not really missing that much. I wouldn't be on social media if not for the fact that I have to do it for business purposes. In any event, thank you both so much. Listeners, if you enjoyed this show, please share it. And we'd like to thank our sponsors again, Life Boost Coffee. The coffee you drink is important. A lot of coffee has mold in it. It's toxic, it's old, stale. With Life Boost Coffee, you can be guaranteed that you are getting fresh, mold-free, clean coffee. And when you taste it, you will know the difference. Save 15% at checkout by using the code YogaFit at lifeboostcoffee.com. And then animal lovers and professionals, make sure you shine a light on a game-changing tool in the veterinary health industry, the Erconia low-level laser. It's FDA cleared. It's designed for precision. It can help your dog with arthritis, pain management, scar tissue, wound healing, energy, and so much more. So whether you're a vet tech, or just someone who believes in the best care for your pet, check out Erconia. And let's believe in the power of light. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, YogaFit Training Systems Worldwide, the leader in yoga, mind, body, fitness education for over 26 years, educating people globally on how to take better care of their health physically and mentally. Between trauma-informed yoga as primary health care, meditation, Ayurveda, and so many more, YogaFit has over 250 programs designed to keep you and your family members healthy, pain-free, and feeling good as you get older. You can save 15% at checkout by using the code HEALTHY23 at yogafit.com. My name is Beth Shaw. I'm the host of Make America Healthy. You can find my books on Amazon. I'm on Instagram at Beth Shaw Health. My dog is Bentley Shaw, on Instagram, Bentley77_. And until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, keep your pets healthy, go out for a walk. It'll be good for both of you. And namaste. Thank you so much.